As president of the American Family Association of Michigan, I met with Representative Agerman and other reps and senators this summer, and that was one of the bills we proposed to them to introduce. To have a law that says no Michigan court can cite Sharia or any other foreign law in one of its decisions or precedents. A judge takes an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and nothing else, and if they break that oath, they should be impeached.
Gary's good. Took the words right out of my mouth. Any judge using Sharia law should be impeached. Simple as that. I was up in Vassar just a month ago, and I told the people up there that Sharia law was going to be used. Somebody yelled from the crowd, never. And the next day, a judge in Florida said he was going to use Sharia law to judge a case. Never. Well, I don't know how many of you know about this law or this agenda, but I'm going to say it as simply as I can. First of all, throughout the document, it talks about states. Anytime the UN wants to get rid of what's called nations or countries or continents and call them states, there's something wrong with it. The second thing it says throughout the thing is they make laws that are very ambiguous. We should not be part of anything the UN is doing. It's a way to get your tax money to take your freedoms away.
Go to my website, garyglenn.us. You can see that one of the ways I propose to cut spending, and of course there's a lot of other benefits too, is get out of the United States. I was a county commissioner. I was familiar with these worldwide attempts to impose land use planning and all these types of attempts to regulate people. It's to restrict your freedom. So I would be against it in total.
I strongly support the United States sovereignty, and I think the United Nations is one of the most destructive organizations against the United States. So I would definitely support every effort to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the U.S.
I don't disagree with people getting around and talking about things, but it has gone way too far as the United Nations. I do not want our military to be part of an international military, United Nations military. I do not want treaties to be imposed upon us, become the supreme law of the land for gun control and other sorts of things. So there's a major danger here that we must restrict.
I'm solidly opposed to Agenda 21, but furthermore, I'm solidly opposed to the continued participation of the United States in the United Nations, which threatens our sovereignty. I would oppose any treaty that is designed to basically run around our Bill of Rights by using treaty law.
I agree with everything that you've heard, but the reason we have this problem is because both Republicans and Democrats that have gone down to Washington have just gone along. And it's time for the people to elect a person who is willing and has a history of challenging the status quo for 40 years. That's what I've done. Our problem with the United Nations is Republicans and Democrats have gone along. Eliminate it and start over again so we can have a different kind of conversation to bring freedom in the world.
Next, the Environmental Protection Agency. You, sir.
Well, it's very interesting that the Environmental Protection Agency truly has done more to hurt the environment. Has done more to hurt the environment under the name of helping the environment. How like Washington, to say one thing and to do another. It could be eliminated as long as we get these permits out, though, first, to allow energy to be developed in the United States by American companies.
Yeah, like many things, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, more harm than good. The real way to deal with environmental damage is somebody is going to be harmed by true environmental damage. And when that happens, that person has a right to sue. So if a person causes damages, that's a civil process, a matter of litigation. We don't need an EPA to set up the huge web of regulations that we currently deal with.
Any organization that says that carbon dioxide is poison is loony. We have it in our lungs. I have it in my soda pop. It is not poison. And it's killing jobs. EPA must go now.
Yeah, I agree. The EPA is, it must go. When I read my little Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, there's nothing in there that says it's the federal government's job to protect the world. We have, you know, state environment. There isn't. You can read it, there isn't. The other thing is, the United States is by far the cleanest nation on earth, and the reason for that is nothing to do with government control. It's because we have something called private property, and people take care of their own property. So.
We have 50 state environmental protection agencies. And the folks that I talk to here in Michigan who deal with the State Department of Environmental Protection tell me the federal EPA won't even cooperate with the state agencies. So if we've got 50 state environmental protection agencies, why do we need 51? Like so many other things, education, energy, commerce. See, I just passed the Rick Perry test. All of them. Shut them down.
About 6 months ago, you got hit with a tax. Probably didn't even know you got hit with a tax. And that's because the EPA just took over the CAFE standards. They set a CAFE standard on automobiles that's unattainable, 24.5 miles to the gallon. Ridiculous.
Thank you, sir. 3 more rounds of this. These are all important topics that the Tea Party has conveyed to me. We want to hear from you. The next one, we've already talked a little bit about that, the Department of Education.
Well, everybody said it. I'm a lot older than some of the people up here. So I didn't have a Department of Education, and I got through school just fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Of course, I went to a Catholic school, and the nuns had something that got me in line, and that was called a ruler.
I made it through all the way high school, came out fine, I think. You guys, most of you look like you did, without a federal Department of Education. It was Jimmy Carter's payoff to NEA union officials for endorsing his presidency. And just like with so many other federal agencies, the notion that we got to take money out of Oakland County and send it to Washington and lose a third of it to bureaucracy so bureaucrats in Washington can tell you as parents and local school officials and teachers how to educate your kids is outrageous and infuriating. It ought to end.
I think the Department of Education is probably one of the most destructive departments we have in Washington. Because what they've done is they've dumbed down 3 or 4 generations of kids. And our kids nowadays have no understanding of the greatness of the United States or the greatness of limited government. They think that the way things are running now is just normal. So I would definitely do away with the Department of Education as quickly as possible.
It is tragic what we're doing. We need to educate our kids. I mean, we fall down so far low compared to other countries in math and science. But it's most important is to understand our system of our government that we're going to lose. Again, the average age in here is probably, you know, upwards of 40 years old. What's happening to those who are younger than us? Wasn't that nice of me? Yeah. Wasn't that nice of me? We have to train our youngsters about this great system we have. We have to.
Okay, of course I'm against the Department of Education should be repealed. By the way, I'm also a teacher. I'm a college professor, but I also substitute teach. And I just wanted to bring this up to show where I'm coming from when people bring up the Sharia law business. I was substitute teaching on Halloween in Dearborn. The regular teacher wears a hijab. I was busy teaching the students, many of them had hijabs, reading them stories about Halloween and costumes, and that was assigned by the teacher. These people really aren't all that different from us.
20 years ago, rather than just talking about eliminating the Department of Education, a group of us went into the inner city of Detroit and created new kinds of schools in the American way. Not with government, but with freedom. People coming together to help others. Our kids in the inner city. We're learning the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, how to speak English, and how to be respectful of others. Let's go create that freedom for all of America. God bless.
Sir, starting with you again, Israel.
Israel is the freest country in the Middle East. Israel is our friend. We must stand with Israel every day.
Many of my friends are Israeli citizens and also American citizens. I strongly support the right of people to give all the money they want to Israel and to go over there and fight for Israel if they want. However, I do not believe in forcing a single individual in this room to pay for the upkeep of another country or another country's government.
No, plain and simple, I think Israel is our best ally in the Middle East. We need to support them. We need to support them with our love, with our support, with our dollars, mostly with our support for them if they get invaded. They're in danger right now, surrounded by others. We have to support them and come to their aid. They are our best ally in the Mideast.
I strongly support Israel. They have the same value structures we do, and they're our first line of defense against aggression in the Middle East. So I strongly support them.
Hey, I learned the answer to this one in Sunday school. You know, who blesses thee, O Israel, I will bless. But I certainly have that same position that we as a country, because we are a democratic republic based on freedom constitutionally, they have the same type of constitution. They're the only one in that area of the world that does. Can I add on the other question about the Department of Education? The one thing the schools do make...
I'm sorry, if you want to reserve that till your closing comments.
Do make a point of teaching is that any of you out here who believe marriage is only between a man and a woman, they do make sure they teach your kids you're a bigot.
I'm end of the line, so I agree with most of these people. I want to take it in another direction. When Obama had Netanyahu in the White House, and he dished him for 1 hour and made him sit there alone, and then he got up in front of the press, and he dished him on the press, I thought it was disgusting. You don't treat your friends that way. Simple as that.
One more round of lightning before we go to the closing remarks. I begin my opening statement and refer to the 17th Amendment. So that's where we'll close. Yeah, this is still lightning here. Still lightning, sorry.
That's all right. As far as I'm concerned, we should go back to what the original forefathers had talked about, and that is senators should come out of the states that they're a part of and be elected by the government rather than by the people.
I'm going to be bluntly honest with you. I'm still resolving my own issue on that, because my first instinct when I first heard about it, because I was raised like everybody else, here's how we do it, didn't even give any thought to it. And when I first heard about taking that power away from the people and giving it to the politicians in Lansing, instinctively, I didn't like that. But I've been reading the Federalist Papers and have come to a greater understanding of why Madison did it that way. It wasn't so much that the senators were representing the state, but the state government. The point being to keep the state governments strong. So I am moving in the direction of being supportive of repealing the 17th.
I strongly support the repeal of the 17th Amendment. People were talking about term limits just a while ago, and if we did not have the 17th Amendment, we would not have a problem with term limits. The Senate is, you know, an organization that is really not accountable to the people at all. They're accountable to the special interest groups that elect them. So if we had the legislatures appoint the senators, it would take care of the problem.
The year 1913 was a bad year. That's when the 17th Amendment was passed. That's when the 16th Amendment was passed for income tax. And that's when the Federal Reserve was created. They all ought to go, don't you think?